Hey, what's up guys? So we're here to go over the Wrath of the Waste set dungeon, how to complete it, which is the Whirlwind set for this season, and let's go ahead and go over how to complete the set dungeon. So what you want to do is go over to Act 5, you want to go to the Pandemonium Fortress level 1, and you're going to go ahead and actually backtrack. Now, we're going to go ahead and go over there. It's really close by. I'm going to want to show the full walkthrough of where the heck it is. So you do need to have the 6-piece set over here. And what you're going to do is walk right over here, and then a portal will appear. So to actually access this, you do need to have the 6-piece set of the Wrath of the Waste. You can technically unequip it and the portal will still be here, but you won't be able to go in. So you have to have all 6 pieces, or you could have a Ring of Royal Grandeur. So let's go ahead and first off go over how to actually access it, which again, it's in Pandemonium Fortress, and it's just basically downwards from the waypoint, and then you're going to go ahead and go to the left. It'll be here every single time. And then after that, let's go ahead and now go over the equipment that you want, as well as the skills that you want, because this is not a easy set dungeon. And I want to go ahead and have the objectives up on the screen real quick. So what we have to do is rend 10 enemies 5 times, and then we also have to make it so we do not take any physical damage for the duration of the dungeon. And then there's also the other tiers over here, which we completed all of them, which again, it's not that difficult. The most difficult part is actually going to be the rend 10 enemies 5 different times, and also not taking any physical damage. That's the most important one. So first off, I want to go ahead and go over some things that will not work in this set dungeon for cheese. So first off, any form of damage block or dodge or shields will not be able to be working in this dungeon. So originally I was thinking you could run the Wildebeest Gizzard and make it so you'd gain that shield, and if you got hit it would just take the shield damage away and it would be considered absorbed. Because in Squirt's Necklace it does not count as you taking damage because it's shield damage. It's the same gameplay mechanic with Wizard. If you take shield damage, there's a lot of gameplay mechanic that does not count as it taking damage unless you take health damage, as in life. So this does not work. I just want to mention that. Also, any dodge chance, I'm sure a lot of you guys probably run Warcry, the Veteran's Warning for dodge. This does not work inside of this dungeon. So that is very important that you do not run those, because there's no point. But let's go ahead and go over the items that I would recommend. So first off, getting as much cooldown reduction is great, because that allows you to utilize Ground Stomp, which is the most important thing for this, to make it much easier on the very first objective to actually rend your enemies. And another thing I want to mention, because we're running the Wrath of the Waste set, where we have that ability to apply rend when we are whirlwinding, we actually do not want to whirlwind for that objective. We want to actually equip rend, and I'll show off what exact runes that you'll be wanting on everything, but yeah, I just want to mention that as a heads up. You'll see during the gameplay here. But as far as items go, things that I can recommend is the illusory boots. You can cube them or equip them, it doesn't really matter. As far as the damage in the set dungeon, it doesn't really matter. You'll be one-shotting things anyways, so don't worry too much about that. It has its own scaling, so you don't need to like put it to normal difficulty to complete it, and it won't make it any easier. But the most important thing is just have these equipped. This will ignore unit collision, which allows you to pass through units, and that will make it so it makes it more difficult for them to hit you with melee attack, because that's primarily the way that you will be losing out on the objective. So these are really good to have. And then in addition to that, we want the Bulk Hathos set, which most of you guys probably already have, with of course this season having the Wrath of the Waste. You already have this, and most of you guys probably end up crafting some mighty weapons anyways. And this is going to allow you to have Fury Regeneration, but it also grants you movement speed when you are actually using Whirlwind, which we'll actually be using during the second part of the objectives over here. Because in the very beginning, you want to focus in on rending those enemies by using rend, and then we're going to go ahead and use Whirlwind to basically clear up everything with the Dust Devil's rune that we get with the Wrath of the Waste 6-piece bonus. So those are the things that are the most important. Other than that, there really isn't anything that I would consider like required for it, but this will definitely make your life much easier. And then as far as what we have in the cube, one thing that can make things much easier for you as well is actually having the Yugioh. This is going to make it so your cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. There are elites in here, and that just allows you to activate your Ground Stomp as well as your Furious Charge over and over for a brief amount of time. Now, as far as the skills go, this is what we're running. So we're running Battle Charge Ferocity, gives us just additional movement speed. Then we're running Ground Stomp Wrenching Smash. This is going to allow us to pull in all those enemies. Then we will be activating our Rend to eliminate all of them. And then running Sprint Marathon, that's just, again, going to help later when we're just trying to complete it by killing all of the enemies, and then I'll just give you additional movement speed, makes things faster. And then for Rend, we want the Fire Rune, which is called Ravage. What it allows you to do is have a bigger pull. So you have Rend activating at 12 yards. This gives it 18 yards. Obviously, this is going to be much easier because you just have to be able to hit more enemies. And then we're running Furious Charge Cold Rush. This allows you to stun enemies by freezing them, and allows you to kind of play a little bit more aggressive and kind of go in on a lot of targets where normally you might be getting hit by a enemy through physical damage. Another thing that I did want to mention, because there's a lot of enemies that will wall you off, you can alternatively, instead of Furious Charge, if you want to, you can try out Leap. I didn't personally like this because how Leap works in Diablo 3 is you can still get hit as soon as you land instantly. Even if you run this rune over here, which gives 100% chance to stun the enemies, you just get hit way too often, even like mid-leap. I don't really like it because of the animation, so I just overall prefer Furious Charge, but it could be another alternative thing that you can run. But everything else I'd consider probably best in slot for the most part. And then for Whirlwind, you can run the Hurricane rune, and what this allows you to do is pull enemies that are further away. Technically, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the glitch where sometimes there will be an enemy that goes off map. Sometimes this can actually proc and make it so it pulls them back onto the map, but it doesn't really matter. Pick whatever rune that you want. You can run Wind Shear so you can have more Fury generation, but for the most part, it really doesn't matter too much. The most important thing is really just the Ground Stomp Wrenching Smash, and then the speed just kind of helps out, and then also Rend. These are the two ones that are like absolutely required. The rest, I mean, you can honestly swap things in and out. As far as the passives go, because I want to be able to have the ability to continuously Whirlwind, and because the damage, it doesn't really matter at all. The only passive that I would say that really helps out is going to be Unforgiving, because that gives you additional Fury generation, which really just helps out being able to Whirlwind at the very end. So yeah. Now that we went over all of the skills and what equipment that you want over here, again, if you can get a bunch of cooldown reduction, feel free to go ahead and do that. But I would say these really help out because, again, you want to not fail the very first objective, which is, of course, rending all the enemies at once. And when you can ignore unit collision, you can basically go through and group up enemies much easier. And then on top of that, the second objective in the primary section, where you're not taking any damage, letting you move through targets makes it much easier, especially when you're getting body blocked by all of the enemies. But anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into the dungeon. Alright, so let's go ahead and go on in. And so this dungeon over here is quite difficult. So if you fail a couple times, don't worry about it at all. Like, it's not an easy dungeon. But anyways, the first thing you want to focus in on is that first objective of rendering 10 enemies at once 5 different times. I would probably reset if you don't get like at least 2 on the very first like little like zone here. I wouldn't say that there's a path that is super optimal and way better than others, because there's a lot of RNG with, of course, how the density works with this set dungeon. So don't worry too much about that, because with all the movement speed that I've shown off in the build, you can actually lap around the map like maybe 2 to 3 times, depending on how fast you clear things. When you actually just focus in on the very first objective first. Remember, you can't take any physical damage for the entirety of the duration, so if you happen to see anything on the ground, like any like poison or any fire, like, it's fine, you can stand in it, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is don't get hit by these pendulums that go ahead and swing by. Just try to focus in on completing the very first objective first, and then you're pretty much good to go, because that's where you're going to probably end up taking the physical damage, is when you're trying to get all of the enemies kind of grouped up. You can see I'm using that Furious Charge over there, so I can go ahead and freeze the enemies, and they're not moving, so they're not going to be doing any damage. So it gives me enough time to set up my Ground Stomp to be optimal. And once we go ahead and complete the objective at this point, now I'm going to go ahead and clean up all the enemies. The first thing that I want to focus in on to be as time efficient as possible is completing that first objective, because sometimes what happens is, what I've noticed is, people will go ahead and try to complete the dungeon by just walking along and eliminating every single enemy, but then you just don't get that opportunity to rend the enemies, and then you just get hit and then you have to reset. I would recommend focusing on the first objective first, and then just reset if you obviously take any damage. You're going to fail the mission anyways. Focus in on that first, because after you go ahead and finish the first mission, you'll be good to go with just literally whirlwinding. You won't be taking any of the physical damage, because the Dust Devil runes will basically eliminate the enemies before they even get a chance to get in melee range. But pretty much if you're whirlwinding the whole time, you won't really be taking any damage. You really have to try to take damage. It's when you're walking around and trying to group up the enemies to actually activate your rend. Again, don't get hit by any of those pendulums. That will instantly make you fail the mission. You can see I only have 10 enemies left, and we have quite a few extra minutes here. We got like 2 minutes. The whole time you get 5 minutes, and at this point we've basically completed everything, and I'm just looking for that last group of enemies. And again, when you focus in on the first objective, everything becomes much easier. But again, don't worry if you failed. I honestly failed it a lot of times. But I mean, if anyone has played the set dungeons, most of you guys probably didn't do it in one try anyways. So again, don't worry. Again, just focus in on that first objective first. And if you don't basically get it within maybe like 2 minutes, like the first objective, I would say just reset. But there it is, guys. That is how you complete the Season Journey Wrath of the Waste set for Barbarian, because I figured everyone's playing Barbarian this season, and I'm going to go ahead and make a updated video guide for you. But anyways, there it is. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully this helps you guys out. And again, don't get frustrated if you don't do it within the first few tries. I didn't get it on the first try either. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel here and would like to see more Diablo as well as other gaming content, hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and you'll see more very soon. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. And if there's any suggestions or if you guys are stuck on anything, let me know down below in the comment section below, and I'll try to help you out. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm out. Peace.